Would our senior patrol leader, Victor Ramon, please come forward and lead us in the presentation of colors and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Gracious God Almighty, we thank you as we gather here together to celebrate the accomplishment of one young man from this troop. We thank you for all the blessings that you have given us both as a troop, as a community, and as individuals. We ask you to bless Kyle on this most important day of recognition and honor. Be with us, guide us as we meet together as a community of scouts, of parents, and as leaders. Help us to understand and do the things which bring glory to your name, glory to this organization. And thank you for hearing our prayers as we offer it in the name who created us all, the one who provides for us all, the one whom we all honor. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Father Campo. I'd now like to call Mark Andreo, Area 2 Director for the Northeast Region, as a representative of the Boy Scouts of America, to officially convene this Court of Honor.
Thanks, David. This is a lot of fun to be able to do this. By the power vested in me by the National Council of the Boy Scouts of America, I proudly, enthusiastically, and duly convene this National Court of Honor to award the rank of Eagle Scout to Kyle Thomas Brewer. Thank you.
Would you please turn the lights off in the back?
Well done. Well done.
Okay. Thank you.
Jenny?
The candle represents the spirit of scouting, a spirit which burns brightly in the heart of every scout. Let us renew our scout spirit by reminding ourselves the meaning of the scout law and the scout oath. First is, the scout is trustworthy. The scout tells the truth. He keeps his promises. Honesty is part of his code of conduct. People can always depend on him. The scout is loyal. The scout is true to his family, friends, scout leaders, school, nation, and world community. The scout is helpful. The scout is concerned about other people. He willingly volunteers to help others without expecting payment or reward. The scout is friendly. The scout is a friend to all. He's a brother to other scouts. He seeks to understand others. He respects those with ideas and customs that are different than his own. The scout is courteous. The scout is polite to everyone, regardless of age or position. He knows that good manners make it easier for people to get along together. The scout is kind. The scout understands there is strength in being gentle. He treats others as he wants to be treated. He does not harm or kill anything without reason. The scout is obedient. The scout follows the rules of his family, school, and troop. He obeys the laws of his community and country. If he thinks these rules and laws are unfair, he tries to have them changed in an orderly manner rather than disobey them. The scout is cheerful. The scout looks for the bright side of life. He cheerfully does tasks that come his way. He tries to make others happy. The scout is thrifty. The scout works to pay his way and to help others. He saves for the future. He protects and conserves natural resources. He carefully uses time and property. The scout is brave. The scout can face danger, even if he is afraid. He has the courage to stand for what he thinks is right, even if others laugh at him or threaten him. The scout is clean. The scout keeps his body and his mind fit and clean. He associates with those who believe in living by these same ideals. He keeps his home and his community clean. And lastly, a scout is reverent. A scout is reverent towards God. He is faithful in his religious duties. He respects the beliefs of others. Now in the Scout Oath, the Scout promises, upon his honor, to do his best in these three areas of duty. First, to God and his country. Second, to others by helping them at all times. And third, to self by keeping himself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
Follow the light of the Trail to Eagle as we recognize the accomplishments of our Eagle Scout. Several years ago, Kyle joined Troop 1 Mount Kisco and began his journey. His friendship with the other scouts in the troop grew as the years went by. As scouts, they always worked together to help each other along the Trail to Eagle. Kyle, will you come up? His first task was to learn Scouting's ideals, the Scout Oath and the Scout Law, the motto and the slogan. By pledging to live by those guidelines, he became a full-fledged Scout and earned the Scout badge. This new badge didn't stay on the uniform for long, however. He quickly worked through the tenderfoot requirements, memorizing the oath and law, going on his first camp out, and learning basic first aid skills. He was now a tenderfoot Scout. As Kyle continued to be active in the troop, he learned about nature and orienteering and knot tying. He participated in service projects and learned about the dangers of alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. During these things and more, he earned the second-class badge. Soon, more time had passed. Kyle had been on at least 10 campouts and many, many hikes. He had mastered the basic skills of scouting and became a first-class Scout. At this point, the trail became harder, and the path was less clear. Now Kyle had to make some choices: what merit badges to earn, what troop offices to hold, where to spend his service hours. With hard work and persistence, though, Kyle made these decisions, completed the requirements, and earned the star rank. The next rank seemed no harder than star, but he had already done some of the easier merit badges. Now he had badges like citizenship, personal management, communications, and family life. Kyle worked hard as a troop leader, completed more service hours, and became a Life Scout, only one step away from Eagle. The going became much tougher now. Kyle could no longer put off some of those really difficult merit badges. And now he not only had to participate in a service project, but he had to plan and lead an Eagle service project as well. Kyle built a large group campsite at the Ward Pound Ridge Reservation with over 150 man-hours of labor. Now, finally, his Eagle project complete, his merit badges earned, Kyle is poised at the pinnacle of scouting. Please come back and take a seat. Would you turn the lights back on? I'm Kieran to come forward and make the presentations. Okay.
We've heard a lot tonight about what it takes to be an Eagle Scout. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Kyle. Kyle joined as a Tiger Scout in the year 2007, earned the Arrow of Light in 2012. He joined our troop, Troop 1 Mount Kisco, in March of 2012. We had him out camping 3 weeks later. He liked camping so much that he attended Camp Reed, our summer camp, for 9 consecutive summers. Not content to just be going to merit badges, he endeavored into the high adventure program that his father so kindly started, with the Delaware Water Gap trip for 50 miles in 2013, a 50-mile backpacking trip in the Adirondacks in 2014, which Kyle still talks about, a custom-made high adventure program that had individual days that did not involve any walking in 2015, film on Scout Reservation, which involved a lot of walking in 2016, and then back to canoeing on Long Lake in 2017. Kyle mastered all of these skills very quickly in his scouting career, earning his first-class rank in his first year of scouting in 2013, advancing to star in 2014, earned his life rank in 2015. He next turned his attention to mastering leadership skills, attending patrol leader developments, staffing that in 2014 and 15, and participating in the NYLT, a National Youth Leadership Training Program, in 2015. Putting those skills to work in our troop, Troop 1 in Mount Kisco. He apprenticed as an assistant patrol leader, advancing to patrol leader. He apprenticed as an assistant senior patrol leader, advancing to senior patrol leader. He turned his attention to serve as a troop guide, helping younger scouts with the introductory patrol, and now serves as both an instructor and has been promoted to become a junior assistant scoutmaster for our troop. In 2014, he was elected by his peers to become a member of the Order of the Arrow, and now enjoys the rank of brotherhood within that organization devoted to service. He continues to dedicate himself to community service through multiple of troop service projects every year. The Order of the Arrow service weekends, including working in Weeblos Woods as recently as last week, and the airport disaster drill where you get made up like a victim and treated by professionals. Pictures. As well as he's been a faithful member for every Eagle Scout project, of which there's been 9 since we joined the troop. For his Eagle project, as Mr. Mao was kind enough to mention, he basically built 6 low-impact environmental campsites, which would be around for about 1,000 years in the Ward Pound Ridge Reservation. And he raised about $6,000 to do that through donated materials and comprised about 160 man-hours to achieve that. It's a fantastic project. He has earned more than 31 merit badges, 10 above the required 21. So tonight he's being awarded the bronze and the gold palm as well. It is the unanimous recommendation of the adult leadership of Troop 1 Mount Kisco, as well as the district board of review back in February of this year, that Kyle be granted the rank of Eagle Scout. At this time I'd like to ask Kyle and his 2 parents, Kathy and Preston, to join me over here. Preston's taken 450,000 photographs in 2012, and now I'm going to mess this one up. In all seriousness, no one will ever know the unnumbered acts of self-sacrifice that your mother has basically put into your scouting career. At this time, I'd like to ask your mother to pin the Eagle Medal on your uniform. Source of much advice and guidance all along the Eagle Trail. So I'd like to ask him to present the Eagle Scout certificate to you. Eagle Scouts high tech. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Troop 1 Mount Kisco's newest Eagle Scout Power Group.
That have happened along the way of Kyle's trail to Eagle. This is a solemn moment, a solemn ceremony, but you can't have this great moment in Kyle's life without poking a little fun at Kyle. Kyle has made a career out of having fun and poking fun, and so it's kind of our turn also to poke a little fun as well. You know, I'll say, Kyle, first, congratulations. You're a fantastic scout and a wonderful person, and no one is more deserving of Eagle than you, so congratulations.
Cheers.
I have to note that you've made many, many contributions to Troop 1 Mount Kisco, and a few things just jump to mind. First, you just have this unparalleled enthusiasm and optimism just wherever you go. Some of the things that I recall you contributing to the morale of the troop include, "I'd rather die than walk another mile." "This has been the worst week of my life camping with you guys." I even think you said something like, "I'd rather eat glass than another dehydrated meal." Even the staff at Cypress Mine in Philmont, they thought that you were just bubbly and cheerful too. Do you remember? Oh no. No, I think they called you the wall of negativity. But your contributions to the troop were not limited to all of that enthusiasm. You set a new standard for respect for troop leadership. If there was a merit badge for insults, you would have been Eagle a long, long time ago. And I'm very, very proud of you today, and my mind wanders to all those trips we've taken together, all those hikes where you were kind of soared towards the front, and your backpack was kind of dangling down by your ankles. I think that was like last week, wasn't it? But through it all, you've developed into just a fine young man, confident, resourceful, honorable, and everyone enjoys your company. What could be better than that? Congratulations. Actually, Joe mentioned.
So, I've known Kyle since he joined the troop, and I've seen this young man grow and mature into the person that we honor tonight. I have seen the funny side of Kyle during the many campouts and the hiking trips, his favorites, together. Unlike the other stories, this is not a funny one, but I do have a story to tell. Before a scout becomes an Eagle Scout, he must pass an Eagle Board of Review. The Eagle Board of Review is comprised of 4 to 6 people, oftentimes not even people that the scout has met before. During this process, we have 5 to 6 letters of recommendation that are sealed envelopes for only the board members to read. Kyle never gets to see these. These letters are from a good cross-section of the young man's life. They're from clergy, friends, teachers, employers, and family. In each one of Kyle's letters, they all spoke of the kindness that he has for others. Each letter. If one letter or 2 had mentioned the same thing, that would be something. But 5 letters from people who share completely different interactions with Kyle, that's a whole other story. It was such a common theme that it was commented on by all board members. It truly came as no surprise to me, though, as I lead the board of reviews with all the scouts moving through the ranks. During these reviews, Kyle's name continues to come up as the person who has supported them and helped them with their requirements. They look up to him. Clearly, kindness is one of your many good qualities and one of the 12 points of the Boy Scout law that we had heard earlier. It has obviously served you well in the past, and we hope it will serve you well in the future. I'm proud of your accomplishments and wish you well on whatever path you choose.
Thank you.
I've known Kyle since he came over as a Tiger Cub into Pack 154. And that was the phase that we actually started camping more. In fact, we as a group, as Don Welsh will attest, Pack 154 used to put a lot of kids in camp.
You guys were the best.
And I would argue that there were some scouts that went with us that I think we collectively say we dreaded.
Just two. He wasn't one.
But others were just downright entertaining. And this was one of them. Now, before I get into the entertainment part, I do want to kind of add to the hints at how much he likes to walk. Subtle, yeah. Nice that you delivered that. But I got to tell you, dude, you are not a morning person. We've gone camping outside of Scotty too, and you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, everybody's up, and then there's this lump in this little bag. So that's Kyle, and usually when it gets out, it's. Do I have to? Anyway, so he's got a tone that's memorable. Let's just put it that way. And in that memorable, the thing that even today I hear from other people in my own family. Best day. Kyle used to be the end person in this skit, the submarine skit. And for those who know the submarine skit, you have a bunch of scouts in a row. They're in a submarine and they all give orders all the way down to the last person. And the last person would go and say, but I don't know how, and they go back up and they give the instructions back, and finally this guy would do it. And Kyle had a delivery. When it finally got to, he didn't say I did it. He said, I did it. And all of a sudden it's just like, that's kind of catchy. Because I did it. And then the skit goes on. It didn't stop with the skit. All of a sudden when you ask him, like, hey, did you do what you're supposed to do? Yes, I did it. So, becoming, and even today, David still says, I did it when I ask him things, and it's in reference to you. So, congratulations, Kyle. You did it. I've known Kyle since he was a 4-year-old student at the Thistlethwaite Montessori School in Katona, wearing slippers all day. So much has happened in 12 years, although he still does wear slippers all day. I wore them today in his honor. Kyle and Preston, and my son Jack and I have covered a lot of ground over the past 12 years. We've camped, and we've hiked, and we've cooked, and we've sweat, and we've froze, and we've bled together on countless trips. Almost always I was the one who bled. Most notably from a Molotov cocktail with a liquid gas stove that leaked on our first camp out with the troop. I burned my hand while scooping up the fireball that was the stove and running as far away as possible from the boys. Preston somehow managed to run and find a bucket of water and still catch up to me to put out the flames on the stove, and then my hand in that water, which tells you basically everything you need to know about camping with Preston. First, he thought enough to put out the fire with a bucket of water, and 2, he can run really fast because I wasn't exactly moving slowly at the time with my hand on fire. Preston is always the guy who makes everything look really easy. The first time we shot skeet together here at the club, he hit 2 birds with a single shot and obliterated both of them to basically nothing but powder. Repeating the pair, but totally by coincidence, the next 2 came out broken as well. And as someone who had never shot skeet before, I was extremely impressed and remarked silently to myself that he managed to break 4 birds with 1 shot, and I was breaking 1 bird for every 4, and that probably says a lot more about my shooting than it does about his. So let's go back to Kyle. While I was burning down the camp and his father was doing the Smokey the Bear routine, Kyle just sat there and watched the entire spectacle with quiet amusement. But I could see that he was just waiting for his moment to make a joke. It was coming, and I waited. But at the age of 10, young Kyle chose not to pile onto my misfortune and misery like his father did, and like Mr. Mallet did, and Mr. Nolan did, and pretty much all the other senior boys in the troop. And I don't necessarily think it was a matter of respect from Kyle. I think it was just he felt sorry for me, which was even worse coming from a 10-year-old. I chose to return the favor when he got diaper rash from excessive chafing on an Appalachian trail due to a poor choice in underwear selection. I'm the one who actually helped turn him over when he was stuck on flat on his back like a turtle on one of the first backpacking trips. It wasn't you. But I remain grateful that Kyle didn't make more than 4 or 5 jokes at my expense when I split my pants open while working on his Eagle project. Probably because he was grateful that I was working on his project and really was on his best behavior. Now, although he is known to hide behind a wall of negativity, I may be one of the few who regard Kyle as a sensitive soul. On one camp out at Derwent, where it was freezing cold and I was gathering firewood because the kids wouldn't, and because it was freezing cold, and does anybody remember this one? They were all like that, so don't worry, it's all the same. I foolishly had kicked apart a fallen tree to break it open into smaller pieces so that I, in my physique, could carry it back to camp in my weakened hypothermic state. Unbeknownst to me, this tree was hollow, and a very large, very pissed off black snake was hibernating inside, and my manly kick broke it open and destroyed his sleeping area, and he fell to the ground, and he was not happy, and he was really big. He was big enough that while Preston was in the middle of reading the sports page about 100 yards away, he had to rush to finish because he heard a little girl screaming. There was no girl. When Preston arrived at the scene of the crime, he also shrieked a little, so no one better think any less of me for that. He took a bunch of pictures, and we stared at the snake for a little while. And basically, it just remained still and coiled up, ready to attack us in any moment. And after a reasonable amount of time to prove that we were both manly men, and were not afraid of this giant snake, we quickly walked back to camp without turning our back to the giant serpent. And when we returned, my son Jack, who was a big fan of snakes, we informed him of our situation. So when we told Jack about this, Preston made us both promise that we wouldn't mention the snake to Kyle, because Kyle would never go camping on another trip again. So we agreed, and we developed a more friendly code name for the snake, and we settled on Chipmunk. As in, do you want to go see that chipmunk is still there? He was, basically, and he never moved for a couple hours because of hibernation and all. So eventually, Kyle overheard all this talk of the chipmunk, and he wanted to go see the actual chipmunk, but by that time, the snake was gone. Preston was very grateful. And all of us got to camp a few more times, a few more dozen times, over the next 6 to 7 years, and all was well with cuddly chipmunks until that very same summer at Camp Reed, when future Eagle Scout Will Glover, who was afraid for his life and personal safety because there was a varmint in his tent, threw a rock and decapitated a chipmunk in front of Kyle within the first 15 minutes we were there. So that, we don't talk about chipmunks anymore. The long-running joke in our troop is that Preston knows someone everywhere we go, as evidenced most conclusively when he ran into a cousin, something removed in the deep woods of the Adirondacks, even though we had not seen a single soul for 3 days. Now, young Kyle is not that well connected just yet, but I believe he is even more blessed. Without exaggeration, Kyle is able to make new friends everywhere we go. He never gets in trouble. Other people do, but Kyle never gets in trouble. He gets along with everyone, especially the adults, and he has a keen sense of how to engage in friendly conversation to make a connection. In today's electronic world, Kyle stands out from the crowd by being able to chit-chat, and he can banter with anyone. His sarcasm game is very strong. Kyle claims to have career aspirations as an automotive engineer, but truth be told, I think his greatest chance of success will be as a professional heckler in comedy clubs in New York and Los Angeles. When Preston asked me to stand up here and tell a funny story about Kyle, I struggled for weeks because, well, not because we're not acquainted or because he's not amusing, but personally, I truly think it's difficult to roast such a good-natured young man. If pressed, I will confess that the funniest thing I've ever heard Kyle say was back in 2012, that he didn't want his dad to join us at summer camp because he wanted to experience it all for himself. So Preston didn't come to summer camp with us the first time. The funny part is Kyle had no qualms about making his father come up for a second week so that he can stay in camp and earn even more merit badges. And Preston missed out on the circus of Mr. Mallon and I learning how to actually be scoutmasters in camp. And he got to spend the entire next week by himself with another troop where the scoutmaster hid in a latrine during a thunderstorm and a search party was launched for him. So that was Preston's first experience at camp. To my knowledge, Preston and Kyle have been inseparable on almost every scouting trip since then. Their love and respect for each other is obvious. All of us are proud of Kyle's accomplishments in earning the Eagle rank, but I'm also very proud to have watched him grow up over the past decade. And I'm in awe of the role model that Preston has proven himself to be to all of us in the troop, especially to me. Kyle Bruin, despite being someone who actually likes to sleep late, who hates cake, but will tolerate a pie once in a while, especially on his birthday, which is almost always when we're at summer camp, who still wears slippers every day, but not today, but is also thoughtful enough that he always calls his mother every night when we're in the woods. I salute you as a fellow Eagle Scout. I wish you continued success. And I offer you this silver dollar minted in 2010 to commemorate the Boy Scouts' 100th anniversary to remember us by as you go off to do bigger and better things. God bless you.
Thank you.
Those are some pretty hard acts to follow. 12 years. Who said let it rip? 12 years, kid. 12 years. For the last 12 years, Kyle and I have hiked, camped, canoed, rafted, horseback ridden, biked, and chillaxed in so many great places in the outdoors. From the Adirondack Mountains to the high plains deserts of New Mexico, and we're actually still talking. Along the way, we learned many things about life and each other. The most important thing I learned about myself was increasing my level of patience for dealing with young boys and adolescents, and maybe some of the adult leaders as well. How many times can you show a kid how to make a fire and they still try to light a 6-inch diameter log with a big lighter when all the kindling is sitting right there? It's just amazing. For Kyle, the most amazing thing that I saw develop was his ability to always find humor in any situation and using that to lead by example. No matter how bad the circumstances were, Kyle always managed to brighten up everyone's spirits with some anecdotal comment making light of the situation. Not that all of our adventures were arduous, but there was always a point on just about every trip that something goes awry. Kyle mastered the ability to not only get himself through it, but also help others push on. Now, some people might have called his comments sarcastic, but there was a real eloquence to his joking. It just took us all a few years to see the magic of his ways. So in that light, we thought it would be appropriate for everyone to hear some of the lighter moments of Kyle's in our journeys tonight. Kyle has spread so much humor over these last 12 years, it was only fitting that we repaid him in kind this evening, and I get the privilege to wrap up this segment. I guess my absolute favorite Kyle story, and there are so many, is from when he was a Cub Scout on his very first camp out at the tender age of 6 years old. This kind of set the tone for the rest of his Boy Scout career, but none of us at the time knew it. And before I tell this story, I need to state a disclaimer on my wife's behalf, who's not a huge fan of this story because she thinks it'll all be taken out of context. But I don't know where he heard it. So we're on his camp out, and as a rainstorm started to roll in, Kyle and I were hurriedly trying to set up a dining fly with Mike Nolan. Where's Mike? Right here. Mike was our new Cub master. Mike was just getting to know us. Literally, it was probably the second or third time Mike had met Kyle. After unpacking the tarp, Mike and I unfolded it between two trees and then needed a rope to string it up. Kyle was sitting there keenly watching the whole process, or should I say, supervising, as he does so well. As I was digging through my pack, I became increasingly frustrated in not being able to find the rope. Mr. Nolan was waiting patiently for the rope to appear, but the rain was starting. Finally, as more and more stuff came flying out of the backpack, I turned to Kyle and said, "Where is that rope?" Without hesitation, our son turned to Mr. Nolan and said, "Maybe Mommy took the rope because she's always saying she wants to hang herself." Well, needless to say, Mike's jaw dropped, and I burst out laughing uncontrollably. And Kyle stood up with an impish grin on his face, walked over to my pack, slowly bent over, stuck his hand in, pulled out the rope, and handed it to me and Mr. Nolan. That was the beginning of Kyle's Boy Scout career. There really are too many stories like that to tell here tonight, and I could go on and on. I would, however, like to take one more minute to express my thanks to not only my son and my family for enduring all the trials and tribulations that our Boy Scout path has taken us on, but I would also like to sincerely thank Kyle's other Scout leaders. Boy Scout leaders are truly a different breed, and without them, none of this would be possible. So please join me in a big round of applause for Mr. Nolan, Mr. Mallet, Mr. Angie, and Mr. Kieran. Thank you. Have devoted countless hours, probably months of your lives at this point, to helping the youth of America become future leaders and model citizens. For that, I genuinely thank you. Our world is a better place for your efforts. Not every Scout becomes an Eagle Scout, but rest assured, every Scout that partakes in the program walks away a better person, and you guys help make that happen. Kyle, everyone is very proud of you, including your grandparents who are no longer with us. In fact, I'm sure Grandfather Bruin is smiling proudly from across the Great Divide, as we like to say here at Campfire. You are receiving your Eagle Scout rank in the very building your grandfather spent so much time in over the years when I was a child, while I was just starting to learn my own love of the outdoors, like you have now done too over these last 12 years. So in closing, I would like to congratulate Kyle, who has accomplished a major milestone in his life. Great job, kid. Your mother and I told you you could do it if you put your mind to it. So use what you've learned wisely. Never stop leading by example. And most importantly, remember you owe me for only telling one story tonight.
Mr. Kieran, just to correct, I think you said Kyle's never gotten in trouble. But when we were doing that Philmont prep hike on the Adirondack Trail, remember the lady called the cops on Kyle?
What happens out there stays out there.
But as you might expect, Kyle talked his way right through it, and there were no arrests. So we've heard a lot tonight about what it means to be an Eagle Scout. Now our honorary Kyle will have the chance to tell us a little bit about what being an Eagle Scout means to him. Kyle?
First off, I have to thank everybody for coming tonight. I especially have to thank a few adults in particular, and when I call your name, if you could come up and receive a small token of my appreciation. A huge thank you to Mr. Mallet. Mr. Angie. Mr. Andrea. Father Joe. Thank you. And Mr. Nolan. Thank you all for reading tonight. I'd also like to thank all of you for being such great role models for me along the way. I most definitely need to thank Beth Whitman, even though she here? Where is she? I didn't see her. I have one for you too. She gave me the idea to do my Eagle project at Wartown Ridge, and that really helped me. I'd like to thank my mom and dad for pushing me so hard to work and never give up on becoming an Eagle Scout. I'd like to thank Mr. Kieran for making this whole process as pain-free as possible and for always giving me tips and tricks on how to do things more efficiently. I'm also very appreciative to everyone who wrote recommendation letters for me, my mom, TZ, come up here, TZ. TZ told me Thank you. Mr. Murphy. Come on.
I didn't get to tell you stories.
You can tell when we get inside. Father Joe, even though you already got and Mr. Tieber, even though he's not here, which is my Spanish teacher. He's a crazy guy. Those letters are part of the reason I'm up here tonight, and it means a lot that you would all take time out of your days to write those for me. I have to thank my sisters. For always calling me cute and telling everyone they know that I'm an Eagle Scout.
That's true.
I also have to thank my beautiful girlfriend for thinking Boy Scouts is so cute. And a big thank you to my best friend John for helping me with whatever I needed and coming on trips after my dad forced them. Lastly, I'd like to thank all the boys who have helped me get here today. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you. Most, if not all of you in here know me very well and know that I can be pretty sarcastic. Sometimes it gets me into trouble, but I'd like to think I get some laughs out of it, which makes it all worth it. I think all the kids and leaders in my troop know that I've never left my sarcasm at home when we went on one of our trips. Whether that sarcasm was turned into snarky complaining or making jokes out of a sticky situation, it always found its way into the equation. I like to call it free entertainment for all the other people on the trip. I wasn't always the most enthusiastic one of the group to go on a 7,000-mile hiking trip, but I would always attend it, even if occasionally it was against my will. I would say that I attend 90% of the trips we go on, and even if I complained 11 out of 12 hours on those trips, I always ended up having fun and making memories that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I'll never forget falling backwards in a parking lot after getting my 45-pound backpack strapped on for the first time. And Mr. Keenan said it was like a turtle stuck on its back. I'll never forget our trip to Philmont with our guide from Colorado, Ken. He probably had quite the idea of what New York was like after spending 3 days with us in the middle of nowhere. My favorite trip of all has to be our first canoe trip on the Delaware River. It was a week-long trip and we covered 50 miles. It was a heavily attended trip, which just made it that much more fun. We went through countless rapids, and it got a little hairy at times. Like when Max and Mr. Mallet were in front of us and decided to cut right in front of our canoe, which caused our canoe to fill up pretty quickly. While everyone else had buckets and things to drain any water that got in their boat, my dad thought he'd be able to get it out with a super soaker instead. Not the brightest idea, but that was the best trip in my opinion. Maybe because I put my paddle in the water probably less than 5 times that week. Because I figured my dad could handle it. Speaking of my dad, I have a lot to say about him. First of all, he's crazy, and everybody knows it. When we would all have tiny little day packs on, he'd be the one with the huge tactical backpack with everything you could possibly need in case the world started to end. The man has more survival kits than I can count. We never had to put any of them to use, but I think everyone was always glad we had them just in case. I think my dad thinks we're on one of those survival TV shows when we go on our hiking trips, but that's okay. All jokes aside, my dad really played a huge part in making all the trips we went on unforgettable experiences for me. I'm glad I got to spend so much time with him in my 11 years of Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. He's the one everyone would go to when they couldn't figure out how to get a fire going, or when they couldn't figure out how to use a camping stove. My dad is also the one that brings appetizers like salami and cheese out into the woods. He would even go on trips that I didn't go on. That's how much he loves all the adventures. Not to mention, my dad has also made great friends along the way, like Mr. Kieran and Mr. Mallet and all the leaders, which I like to think is because of me. They never would have met if it weren't for me. But anyway. When my dad was younger, he was in Boy Scouts and made it to the rank of Life Scout, which is one below Eagle. Then his troop sort of shut down and became an exploring group. I'd like to think that today, my dad is living vicariously through me, because I achieved Eagle Scout not just for myself, but for the both of us. Boy Scouts has been such a monumental part of my life, and I really owe it to my dad. I don't know if we'd all be here today if it wasn't for him, but what's a man without the woman that makes it all possible? My mother. She's always been there for me throughout my Boy Scout career and my life. And she's always pushed me to do my best I could because mediocrity was never enough. Even though sometimes she thought we were crazy for going on all our trips so far away from civilization and electricity, she always encouraged me to go. Probably because she just wanted to be a woman. Mom, there's nothing I love more than making you proud. And one of the best parts about today is seeing how proud you are of me. It makes it all worth it. I really wouldn't be here. I really wouldn't be who I am today without you or Dad. I love you guys so much and appreciate all you have done for me. I have some awards to give out now. I have some awards to give out now for people that have influenced me the most along my way. The first mentor pin is for the one and only Mr. Kieran. He's the only Scoutmaster I've had in my whole 11 years. I can 100% guarantee we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. He coached me every single step of the way and refrained from calling me dumb even when I asked him questions. He's a phenomenal guy and a true role model of mine. He puts more time and effort into Boy Scouts than anyone I've ever met, and it shows. He has added to my entire Boy Scout experience, and I wouldn't have wanted to go through it with anyone else. He never left a question unanswered and really helped me do my best. I appreciate everything he's done for me. The next pin is for my best friend and my biggest role model, my dad. As all you heard a couple minutes ago, he has really made my Boy Scout career worthwhile, even though it took a little longer than he wanted for me to get to this day. I did it because I knew how proud he'd be. My dad is my biggest mentor. Not only is he an incredible father, Kim and Katie, and but he is a great husband to my mom. Growing up with such a hardworking dad has shown me what it means to be a man. I really look up to my dad and all that he has accomplished. I hope to be a husband and father like him someday and pass down all the skills he's taught me to my own kids. Thanks for everything, Dad. I can't wait to see what crazy adventures we'll tackle together next. The next one's a tough one. The third pin to give out is for Staff Sergeant Billy Trout. I'm sorry. Billy couldn't be here with us today because he is overseas protecting us right now. This is your fault, Kate. You told me I was going to cry. So I guess I can forgive him. I have known Billy since I was in a stroller, and he's always been a guy I've looked up to. He was the lifeguard at my grandma's pool, and I would always look forward to hanging out with him in the summer because he'd always play with me and made me laugh. Now he has gone on to become a weapons squad leader with the 1st Platoon, and he's doing great things and making us proud. Even though I'd rather him be home safe, it's nice to know that such an honorable guy is out there fighting for our safety. If you ever met Billy, you'd never think he's in the Army. He's such a big fuzzball, goofy guy that can make anybody laugh. Since the minute Billy found out that I was a scout, he has been telling me it's one of his biggest regrets that he didn't make Eagle. Although I've only seen him a handful of times in recent years, every single time, he'd say that I better make Eagle Scout because of how much he regretted it. And I always knew that when I made it one day, it would only be right to give him recognition. Since he could not be here today, I'd like to give him a to his parents.
Take a picture.
Just want to say I'm so proud to have a son that can mentor a guy like Kyle. I'm honored that he appreciates my son. Presently, my son is in Syria with the Rangers, the Army Rangers, protecting us. Thank you ever so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for raising such an admirable son, and thanks for letting him keep us all safe. As you can all see, Boy Scouts has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I know now, looking back, that Boy Scouts has helped shape me into who I am today. Through Boy Scouts, I have learned what it means to be a leader, a team player, and a friend. I'm very thankful for the opportunities and experiences I've had over the past 11 years, and all the memories I've made along the way. Thank you all for coming. It really means a lot to me.
You and your dad swamped the canoe, and somehow that's my fault. Okay. Just making, but thank you, Kyle. Those were really wonderful words. This has been a very special evening for all of us, and thank you all for coming and participating in this Court of Honor. Afterwards, please join the Bruins and us for some refreshments in the main lodge, just out this door and up the hill. And we'll give Kyle one more round of applause. Thank you.